I want to welcome you to the Schwarzman College of Computing and to the Business of Quantum Summit. I'm Albert Skirbo. I'm the Associate Director for MIT's Initiative on the Digital Economy. We're the host organization for today's summit. Behind the structure of this event is a whole research program of which quantum computing is just one bit. I'm going to run through a very short introduction of what the IDE is about, and then we'll get into today's discussion and what I hope is going to be a fun debate. We've all seen the whirlwind growth of AI catch organizations by surprise. I'm sure many of you are here today wondering if quantum computing is poised to do the same. But at the IDE, our aim is to ensure these changes aren't surprising and that we're well equipped to navigate the waves of progress. 10 years ago, the IDE's co-founders saw technology racing ahead of how companies, society, and governments were responding. They created the IDE within MIT's Sloan School of Management to bridge this gap. Our research is inherently academic with real-world relevance and real-time impact. And digital experimentation is the foundation of all we do. Our faculty and researchers, many of whom you'll meet today, conduct research that delivers proven business outcomes, addressing critical areas like human-AI collaboration, misinformation, future of work, and, of course, quantum computing. At any given time, we've got 40-plus research projects underway from our rockstar multidisciplinary team of scientists and thought leaders. These researchers have experience in industry that informs their empirical research. They've written award-winning books and prize-winning papers. I counted 30,000 new citations for our 8 research group leads just last year. They serve as faculty at the World Economic Forum, and they're sought for their expertise by policymakers, business leaders, and news outlets alike. We partner with industry in a host of ways, primarily through our corporate membership community. IDE members work directly with MIT researchers on projects that forward our understanding of the management of technology. They send visiting scientists to be stationed on campus and collaborate directly on multi-year research projects. Our members share their perspectives from the field as speakers at our 20-plus events, just like this one. Some are open to the public, some are member exclusive. They work with and recruit MIT graduate students through our experiential learning programs, the Analytics Lab, and the brand new Generative AI Lab, sharing their data and their time to solve real-world business challenges. And they facilitate what we're learning through their organizations, through executive education courses like Breakthrough CX, Systemic Product Innovation, and the AI Executive Boot Camps. I want to tell 3 quick stories of the IDE's impact. One, when the New York Times decided to pioneer digital subscriptions, the IDE researchers designed experiments to optimize their paywall, balancing open access and profitability. The result is a digital revenue strategy that today's common practice, and for those who are annoyed by it, I maybe apologize a little bit. Second, as misinformation has run rampant over our online ecosystem, we've been on the front line of designing interventions. Most recently, we introduced the large language model-powered DebunkBot, which is shown to reduce people's belief in conspiracy theories by 20% with no fine-tuning needed. And finally, we've recently built MindMeld, a commercial-grade platform for analyzing human-AI collaboration. We're actively working with multiple firms to better understand what that looks like and build agents that are personalized to unlock productivity, performance, creativity, and innovation. The stories like these aren't rare. They're pretty typical of the impact of our work, and you'll hear a couple more pieces of some of our research throughout the day. I'd be remiss not to give a big thanks at this time to the IDE's larger community of supporters, the companies, foundations, and generous anonymous individuals who support our work. Our research and events like today can't happen without that effort. It's not just a list of logos. These companies contribute real-world perspective, recruit MIT students, and apply our insights directly, making sure that we're anchored in practical, deployable innovation. You're here because you recognize quantum's disruptive potential. At the IDE, I think we're pretty unique in focusing on the business of quantum, developing practical tools and insights you can use today. But the rigorous real-world approach goes beyond quantum, addressing all the technologies that are reshaping how we live and work. We've shared our socials and an IDE newsletter link. I encourage everyone to follow along. My contact info is up on this slide, and you're welcome to find me directly sometime today if you want to get more involved in our work. Whether you're a technology leader, a researcher, a journalist, a student, or a policymaker here today, your perspective is essential. I hope you'll actively participate in some of the Q&A. We've got some really phenomenal panelists, and I'm sure they're eager to hear your questions. Thanks for joining us today. There's no better place to navigate rapid innovation than at MIT and at the IDE. Now it's my pleasure to welcome our co-chairs of this event and IDE researchers, Jonathan Ruane and Neil Thompson, to the stage to get us started and get into the content. Thank you.
Great. That microphone working. You can hear me okay. Great. Welcome, Albert. Thank you very much for that. My name is Jonathan Ruane. I'm a researcher here at the IDE and also part of the Global Economics and Management Group at MIT Sloan. And across those organizations, I've been teaching and researching in the world of quantum for a couple of years now. And it's clear to me that across that short period of time, relatively short period of time, I have never seen so much interest in quantum as in the last couple of months. Does everybody else recognize that same thing? Maybe you've seen some of the stock price movement along the way as well. And so when we decided to put this event on, one thing that we were really trying to think about is how can we add some precision to the conversation? So that really is what today is all about. We're going to have a number of panel sessions. We're going to introduce some of our own work here at IDE. We'll have a focus across quantum computing, but also quantum networking, cryptography, and some of the associated topics that go along with it as well. But really, none of this would be possible without our collaborators, our panelists, world experts, and so we really think so much of the value is derived from their participation today, so we really value it. One thing I wanted to mention is some work that I'm leading here at the IDE, and it is a project called a Quantum Index Report. And so it really has the same objective as some of the priorities for this session today, and that's really about trying to add some data and insights into what's happening in the world of quantum. We're focused on quantum computing and quantum networking. I thought I'd share some of those insights today as they may be useful in terms of setting up the conversations that we're just about to have. One thing that I've mentioned there is the interest that we're seeing in the public markets. We've done some tracking on the amount of mentions of the word quantum computing in earnings calls from publicly listed companies. And what we can see is that there is no doubt that the public markets, they are certainly increasingly interested over the last 3 years in particular about what's going on in quantum computing in particular. So interest is certainly ramping up. But we're also seeing this from the perspectives of employment as well across the US economy. So we've been tracking the number of mentions of quantum skills in postings for new jobs in the United States. And again, we're seeing, despite the tight labor market that we have here, we are seeing a really very strong upward trajectory in the demand for quantum skilled people. And that's something we're probably expecting to continue. So we're seeing it in the public companies, we're seeing it in the labor market, we're also seeing it to some degree, although it's a bit more nuanced, in the private investment market as well. So there's continued investment. It is moving around in terms of what subdomain is getting the investment today versus tomorrow. But I do want to call out that really, you know, this only gives us a small insight into total investment in the quantum space, because we can only track publicly announced capital raises. So we know so much work is going on inside Alphabet and IBM and so many other large listed companies that we don't have insight into in terms of their investment. So it's a good time to be raising money. We've seen plenty of big announcements, and we'll be really interested to see how this continues. I don't want to get into the weeds too much on some of the data that we've got, but one really important underlying, data point that we like to look at is actually analyzing the quantum processors that are in the market that are commercially available, that you or your organization may want to go out and actually use and experiment and run proof of concepts with today. And so we call some of those the quantum processing units, the QPUs, and we're going to talk about this today. For those who don't know, there are multiple different ways of building a quantum computer, multiple different modalities. And we can see amongst the ones that are available in the market today, superconducting one type is certainly is the leader. Trapped ions, of course, is very important, but we're seeing an increase around neutral atoms and photonics as well. And so we've analyzed that in the report, and there's lots more detail. One thing that's adjacent to that I think is interesting is there's a lot of talk amongst policymakers and government officials and general commentators on geopolitics about who's winning, China versus the US versus Europe, etc. There's lots of different dimensions across which we can look at this, but one that we think is interesting is if you look at the QPUs that are available in the market today, and the ones that have been announced that are going to come out realistically in the next 18 months. And you look at where those QPUs are being developed, where they're being manufactured and sold from, we're certainly seeing really, the US dominating that and this is within the quantum computing world. So there's lots more data within the index report. We also look at quantum networks. We have a session on that later on today, and you'll hear about the importance of test beds. So generally speaking, city-sized networks upon which you can test and iterate and learn more about what's going on in developing these new technologies. And so we have lots of analysis of what's going on with quantum networking test beds in Europe, US, etc. So that really is a quick summary of what's happening in a little bit of what's happening in the field that might tee up some of the conversations. There's lots more of it in the report. For those who are new to MIT, this is the MIT logo, the crest on the left-hand side, and there's a little phrase buried in the middle of it, mens in matis, and that is hand and mind. And it's something that we really care about here at MIT, that our research and our teaching and our efforts are not just about improving the world from the perspective of adding knowledge, but we want to have real-world impact. And that's what you're seeing across many of the vectors of the Quantum Index report. We're launching it on World Quantum Day. For those who don't know, this is the UN declared 2025 as the year of quantum, and specifically the 14th of April is World Quantum Day. So we will send out an email, of course, and let you all know when it's officially launched. And we've done it in collaboration with many of our partners, such as the Accenture folks, Center for Quantum Networks. We're funded by the NSF, and a whole bunch of other people that I'd like to thank on that as well. So that really is the end of it from my point of view in talking a little bit about one piece of work that we're doing here at MIT, the Quantum Index report, and hopefully it's something that you'll be able to get involved in as well. We very much see this going forward as a community project. We do not think we've got all the data, we haven't got all the insights, and what we'd like to do is work with yourselves in the future to build this out even further. So really, a bit like today is the inaugural Business of Quantum Summit, we're launching the inaugural Quantum Index report, but it's very much something that we want to work with other people on building going forward. One announcement with mens in matis in mind, that as well as today's conference, for those who have some availability, we are doing a tour of the MIT Nano Building. And this is one of our most expensive and most impressive buildings here at MIT, and it's actually the place in which they fabricate some of the quantum computing chips that Will Oliver and others here at MIT use for their experiments and to develop the field. So if you want to go and actually see where we make experimental quantum computing chips, there's a tour available at 4:30, and I suggest everybody has seen Albert, you know what he looks like. I suggest you grab Albert between now and 4:30 and put your name on that list if you're of interest. So that's it from me. I'm really excited. I'm delighted to see so many people here today. I'm really looking forward to hearing what the panelists have to say, and I'm going to pass over to Neil for his piece. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. So I don't know about all of you, but when I first started thinking about quantum computing now many years ago, right, I had this sense of like, oh, okay, I spend a lot of time thinking about classical computing, I should be able to just sort of jump into this and figure out sort of what's going on. And boy, was that not the case, right? It took a while to actually get deep on this. And that to me sort of told me something about it, because the other thing I'd been hearing sort of around me was people saying, well, like, we have classical computing, and I did a lot of work studying Moore's law and Moore's law slowing down, and people say, oh, that doesn't matter because quantum computing is going to take over everything, right? And I thought, okay, that's a bold statement, and I didn't feel like I knew enough about quantum, and that's really what got me into, well, let's try and push a little bit deeper on this topic. And of course, what I found, and I suspect that many of you in this audience already know, is that's not the case, right? Quantum is not a general panacea that's going to be sort of the next generation of computing for everything. It's going to be the next generation of computing for some things. And it's really important to ask that question, well, but which things? And when are those actually going to happen? And so part of what we're going to hear today is about the progress that we're making in hardware, the applications that people are actually doing, and then a session that me and one of my research scientists will lead at lunch, or just before lunch, where we talk about a framework for trying to unite these things so that we can actually understand it. And I just want to take a few seconds to talk about that, because hopefully it'll give us a little bit of a framework for thinking about what we're going to hear about today. So if the big question is, what problems will quantum computing speed up? You say, well, we want to know this because it matters for a lot of things, right? Some particular firms are going to be affected way more than others. Some industries are going to be affected way more than others because it's only going to be certain problems that get accelerated. And if you think very largely, you think about the macroeconomy and what's going to happen, we want to know, is this like the next thing that's going to be, AI, and it's going to transform huge parts of the economy, or is this going to be something that has a more narrow effect? Right? We need to understand these. Okay, so the goal for our particular session that we're going to do here is to provide a framework for tech-savvy non-experts on how to think about quantum, so that you're not in that position I was in, right, where I said, hey, I know a little bit of technology, let me jump in here, and realizing, oh, actually, it was pretty hard to get deep on it. Actually, it turns out that you can abstract away from a lot of that to just capture the most important pieces and get some understanding of that. And this is going to help us understand when quantum will be important for real problems. Okay, so I just want to take 1 second here to talk about the role of algorithms and hardware speed. And this applies both for classical and quantum computing, but it's going to be super useful today for thinking about where quantum is going to have an effect. So I just want to think about some abstract thing. On the left-hand side of this, I just have tasks per unit time. Some measure of productivity, right? We want to get more stuff done, right? As our businesses, we want to be more efficient about these things. And all I'm going to do is take that tasks divided by time, and I'm going to divide both the top and the bottom of it by computation, right? And then I'm going to rearrange those terms. So this is just an identity. It's just like multiplying by 2 and dividing by 2 at the same time, right? There's no net effect of this. But you can rewrite this as the number of tasks that you can do for a certain amount of computation, and the number of computations you can do per unit time. And the nice thing about breaking this apart is that that first red term is just about algorithms. It just says, I have a certain number of computations I can do. What can I get done in that actual amount of computation? And the second is about the hardware speed, actually what you get, right? And we're sort of used to Moore's law providing a huge amount of improvement in that. So what's nice about this is it allows us to think about quantum and classical differently. Okay, so you see here I've put the tortoise and the hare, and this is actually a framework that we've developed to help think about this. But classical computers are way, way faster than quantum computers, right? That's really, really important. And this is a function both of just actually how fast they run, but it's also a function of the sort of error correction and things that have to go alongside it. So that means that if you have the same algorithm for both problems, classical wins. But you don't always have the same algorithms, right? The really amazing thing about quantum is that it sort of opens this space of algorithms from what we knew, sort of what Alan Turing talked about as like what computers could do, and said, no, actually, this is actually a little bit bigger. There are some algorithms that only quantum computers can do, and they can be very powerful. And probably the best known of this is Shor's algorithm for factoring numbers. Okay, so then what's nice about this is you can then start to think about this as basically a contest. So if classical computers are faster, but quantum computers sometimes have better algorithms, you can net that out in this kind of equation and ask which is going to be better, right? And so, the way I think about this is, imagine you have both sort of, you have two routes, one of which you two paths that you're going to go to between New York and Shanghai, right? And you say, okay, well, one of these I'm going to have, a really fast system that can go around. Our hair can go around, but doesn't have access to the most efficient route, right? Think of the route as the algorithm, and how fast we can go is the hardware speed, right? So the classical algorithm's really fast, but they have to take this kind of circuitous route, whereas the tortoise gets to go through, in this case, the Panama Canal, right? Gets this nice little shortcut. Now, which of these is actually better is not obvious, right? Depends on how much the shortcut saves you and what's the difference in speed between the two things. And that's going to be a really, really important thing that we're going to come to today, is thinking about, well, actually, how big is that difference? And which problems have algorithms that allow you to have a big enough shortcut that it overcomes it? Okay, so we will talk about that more later, but I did want to provide this framework because we're going to be talking today a bunch about the state of quantum computers and stuff, and so I wanted to give you this framework to think about, well, when we talk about progress in hardware and progress in error-correcting codes and things like that, what those are telling you is like, oh, the tortoise is not going to be as slow as it was before, right? And that's going to change some of these things. And so hopefully this will give us a framework for thinking about a bunch of the things we're going to see today. And with that,